Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 12 Steps for Non-Addicts. This is a journal course in spiritual freedom and deep happiness. I am with Morgan. Chris cannot join us today, so it's just me and Morgie. And we are doing step 10 today. So we're almost at the end, and I hope you guys are enjoying every part of this because I know I am. And as a reminder, if you haven't done the previous steps to this, don't start with step 10. Start with step 1 and make your way through. So, all right, Morgan, take us through step 10.
Okay, so step 10, 11, and 12, by the way, are what we call our action steps. So they're our steps for daily living. So these are the steps that we're going to take everything we've learned and put them to use in our daily lives.
Love it.
So step 10, we continued our personal reflection and we right our wrongs at once. Mm-hmm. Step 10 is where we put to use what we learned in the fourth step, the mechanics of the turnaround and our character defects. In doing so, we remain in the light and only grow closer to it. As a result, we are of better service to ourselves, to others, and to the divine. That is the whole point of this, after all.
Totally.
Your work in step 10 is a nightly writing assignment, as well as continued daily awareness of your defects. And remember, that's not us being offensive to you. It's just what they're called.
Yep.
Practice using the tools you've learned so far to turn it around before it becomes a full-fledged resentment. This will become second nature, and practicing helps make that happen. If you need to, write out situations that come up the same way you did in step 4. Okay. So step 10, instructions. At the end of each day for the next 10 days in your journal, ask and answer in 12 words or less the following question. 1, was I resentful? Was I dishonest? Was I afraid? Was I selfish? Do I owe an apology? If yes, make it ASAP. Have I kept something to myself that I should share with someone else? Hint, a nagging resentment. Was I kind and loving toward all? What could I have done better? Was I thinking of myself most of the time, or was I thinking of others and what I could contribute? When you are done, thank the divine for its infinite love. Ask for guidance in the areas you see you need a little help, and that's okay.
I love it. I love it. So I was saying to you before I hit record that when I did my meditation course, process in the course, but when I went to my retreat with Deepak Chopra, he calls this process the recapitulation process. And every night before he goes to bed, he does this exact thing. And his questions are a little different, but it's essentially the same thing. Like, you're looking back on your day and you're asking yourself, and I love the question, like, was I thinking of myself most of the time? Because he always talks to us about like being in the moment and being present. And when we're stuck in our own head and these like thoughts are racing and they're going in a circular motion, we're not helping other people. We are selfish in that way. But, and again, that's kind of like a similar thing is the defect. Like, I don't mean selfish like you're being an ass and you're being selfish. It's just that you're selfishly thinking about you and your problems over and over again. And this process of recapitulation helps us to retrain our brain, basically. You know, right. So I love this. I think it's so cool. And just to clarify, Morgan's original document to me had us doing this for 30 days. And I just said, hey, can we give him a break and I'll have him do it for 10. But I think that you'll say, right, that our hope is that people will find this process rewarding and, again, so full of knowledge and getting to know ourselves again on a different level, that it'll become habitual, and that they'll, even if they don't write it down, just the process of doing this recapitulation at the end of the day will be meaningful, I think, for the next day, but certainly going forward. Yeah.
Totally. And from my experience, you know, I was told to do my nightly review is what it's called. Because I had just done all of this work, and my sponsor, and even during when I was doing my writing, my sponsor would have me do this because she told me so I wouldn't have anybody else to put on my list. I wouldn't have any new resentments to put on my list. And now going forward, I don't always write it down. Like maybe if I've had myself a day, I'll write it down. But I do review my day in my head. And when I'm saying my prayers at night, I ask myself these questions, and if I see where, maybe I fell short, I ask God for help. And it's not like a punishment. It's not like, God, forgive me because I've been a terrible person. It's like, all right, I see where I fell short today. Can you help me do better tomorrow? Because it's not about being perfect, which is something I struggle with. I've always struggled with it. It's about realizing that we're not perfect and we will fall short, and having the ability and like courage to actually look at ourselves and say like, yep, I fell short. Yep, I was really just thinking about myself all day today, wrapped up in my stuff. And when I get like that, I can see exactly how that affects everybody that I interact with. And I can just ask God for help and to make tomorrow a better day for me in that area.
Well, it's interesting that you say about not being perfect, because in my journal this morning, I'm getting to the point in my life, in the story that I'm kind of putting on paper in my journaling, about my relationship with God, and how I, for many years, didn't have one. But then when I did, for me, it was all about being perfect for him, but also trying to live this Christ-like life, sorry, that's almost impossible for a human being to attain. And I would get so mad at myself that it would just reinforce to me how I wasn't good enough, and how I wasn't spiritual, and I wasn't even doing anything right, and blah, 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 blah. So it actually was like a self-defeating process for me, which pushed me further away from God. Because in my mind, I wasn't doing it in the way that he would approve of. So I kind of just gave up. And now I've changed my relationship, or I think it's also been the course of having conversations with like lots of priests. And they all say the same thing that you were just saying along the same lines, is like, congratulations, you're human, right? Like,
right.
Oh, you weren't perfect today? Congratulations, you were human today. And so was Jesus Christ, right? Like, he wasn't perfect. He second guessed God. Like, we see that in the whole 3 or 4 days before his death, right? Like, God, why have you forsaken me? So I think that this is a good one. I really like this one. And I really like that you said about, it's not about being perfect, because it's not about being mad at ourselves at night. Like, oh, I wasn't, or I was resentful today. Like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. Like, no. No.
No, and it's again exactly the same mentality as when we did the fourth step. It's not to look at this stuff and I'm a piece of shit. Like, no, it's just to own it. Like, even when I mess up, there's something empowering in just owning it, rather than like hiding behind it and like saying, no, today was a good day and I was a really great person and really pleasant to be around, even though I wasn't. And then that's just not honest, and there's no growth from that. And that dishonesty within myself slowly cuts off my connection to God, and it makes me feel inside unworthy the more it builds up. So doing these things at night, asking myself these questions, and me having the willingness to be honest, keeps me clear and on the beam.
Yeah, totally. I love that, on the beam. Yeah, totally. And for me, this whole process has been about, it's been like a whole, like I said, it's a whole different layer of going within. And the thing that I like a lot about the journaling, this whole journaling that we've been doing, is that we're not really sharing it with anybody else. I know that we do share that step 8 and 9, but that's like, it's a totally different ball game. Like this, we're not sharing the dailies of this. I'm not going to call you and be like, so I was doing my recapitulation last night and I was so resentful and blah, blah, blah. Like you don't do that. And when you're being honest in your journal with the intent that you're not going to share it, that's when the beauty comes out. Because we're always, as our ego will protect us when we're in a group or even when we're in therapy. Like 90% of the people tell the therapist what they want to hear. There's this like, I'm about to say something, so I'm going to judge myself before I say, nope, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say this. Right. And so there isn't this in this step 10. And I like that because it keeps us honest for ourselves, but it really does show us what's really going on in our heads.
Right.
You know,
right.
Which the only place to find these answers is in here.
Right.
I can't.
And another big important part of step 10 that it's hard to like say because we don't have like text to refer to here. Like the point of all these steps is ultimately to have a closer relationship with God and to be of maximum usefulness and service to him, which means, and which sounds super religious and whatever, but it really means like to grow closer to the divine, get in touch with your true purpose and help another human being, whatever that looks like. And so like the questions about like, was I thinking about myself most of the time? Or was I thinking about others and what I could contribute? Because we're way more useful in our day-to-day lives when we're thinking about other people than when we're obsessively focusing on us and our problems.
Yeah, totally.
And not to say we don't think about ourselves at all,
right.
but
yeah, totally. And I also feel like too, a lot of the things, well, sorry, I need coffee and it's like the afternoon. I think one of the big things that people miss is the fact that we all are divine. Right? Like we're not trying to connect with this energy that we're not. We're trying to get in touch with this energy that's actually inside us and all around us all the time. And that soul level knowledge and that soul level connection is what is coming out in all of this journaling. And the soul isn't just, it is pure light, but it's all encompassing. So if you happen to be resentful or dishonest or afraid, then there's a reason why that is. And coming in journaling and coming up with these, originally in step 4, it was the list of people. And then we make amendments and all that. Like that's getting us closer and closer and closer back to the original issue. Right. And the original issue was probably something that wasn't even our fault, but how we act today is our responsibility. So this whole process is actually trying to get us connected to the divine, but also remind us that we are divine. And we can connect to that beautiful part of us, that soul part of us that is mostly overshadowed by the ego and by living in this human body in this human life. So another great step together. All right. Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited, as I have been this whole time. So, all right, cool. Well, any other thoughts for everybody?
No, I think that we covered it here. And I'm too so excited for you guys. And if you are at step 10, you're definitely already having these experiences that Ashley and I are talking about. And you are definitely realizing and feeling the divine within you. And I think realizing that it's not a big entity outside of yourself, it's in you too. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. All right, cool. Well, we only have 2 more to go. So hopefully you guys are out there doing the work and we're always here for you. So feel free to comment with any questions.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.